Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Generation Wild 2018 results webinar. My name is Rosemary Dempsey, and I'm here at GOCO, Great Outdoors Colorado, with the Schuylkill advertising team and several of our staff members. We're so excited that you could join us today. This is the second results webinar we've held, the first one around this time last year, where we shared out the first phase results of a longitudinal mixed methods research study around Generation Wild. It's been such a pleasure to work with so many of you on this movement to connect youth and their families to nature and to the outdoors more often. We first launched Generation Wild 2 years ago, and we're ramping up for a really exciting third phase of the campaign. So we look forward to sharing more about that with you as the months come. And as always, if you ever have questions about how your organization can partner with Generation Wild, whether we're in season, in market, in the summertime, or out of season, we're running this campaign year-round these days. So never hesitate to reach out to me at rdempsey@goco.org or to give me a ring. And all of my contact information is on the goco.org website. So I'm so happy to introduce the Schuylkill advertising team, who's been a partner on Generation Wild since the get-go. Here today with me, I've got Mike Schuylkill, who's creative director and founder at Schuylkill Advertising, Dan Schultz, who is a researcher and strategist, and our account supervisor, Christina Wilder. So you'll be hearing from all of us today. And feel free at the end of the webinar to ask us questions if you'd like. And in the meantime, we'll just ask you to mute yourselves as we are recording the webinar. Lots of folks interested in joining later. All right, over to you, Mike.
All right, thank you. You're going to control. The goal of Generation Wild has not changed. It's the same goal that we started with, and that is to change an entire generation of kids. This past summer, we're in year 2 of the effort, and this past summer, what we tried to do from a paid media strategy was really deepen the communications with the most vulnerable and disconnected audiences so we could help drive that behavior change with them. We also found new ways to define and reach kind of reluctant outdoor adverse moms. And we did this by looking at different income, education, employment type. We went in the digital space and really identified video game players as a key component of finding those moms out there that were outdoor adverse. And so we put all these indicators together, and we're really able to get into, if you will, kind of the toughest audiences for the campaign to reach. And we did this past year with a variety of messages. We had a real tiered message strategy. It was a fully integrated statewide campaign. If you see the upper right-hand corner, that was a TV spot that was called Set Them Free, that pictured some little kids being restrained in playpens and behind baby gates, and then they finally walk out the door. We also started a really interesting Facebook group this last year called Raising Generation Wild, and that has seen some really, really good success. In addition to those tactics, we had some out-of-home tactics throughout Denver and Colorado Springs. And here we wanted to really inspire and remind parents that, what how they see the world and how their kids see it are kind of different, and that kids really do get engaged by the outdoors. Again, in the upper right-hand corner, we want to start addressing the kind of overprotective society and culture that we live in. And so we created some Band-Aids that were giveaways that I'm really positioned, scrape on the knee now as a trophy or a badge of honor rather than an injury to their kids. And so now we'll talk about how we started to analyze the 2018 campaign. We always do this from multiple perspectives to make sure that everything adds up, right? So the first thing we look at is media, and we want to measure from media if we are effectively communicating the message to the target audience that we desire. And then we start to look at engagement rates, and engagement rates come across in a variety of different ways. Some of those are from our social media campaigns and our digital media campaigns. We can see if people, clicked on an ad, if they watched the ad throughout the whole time. We look at website analytics, and then we look at a lot of buzz and just conversation that goes on in the environment. And finally, the one that is really interesting, especially this year, is the longitudinal study that Dan will talk to you about. And here we really are starting to measure the attitudes and behavior changes among the people we are trying to affect. So when we look at media, our media analysis of 2018, the campaign generated over 43 million impressions between June and November. That was across the state of Colorado. And especially with Colorado moms, we saw really good things starting to happen. For instance, they viewed our programmatic video ads from start to finish more than 1.1 million times. And to get somebody to watch a video all the way through is really no small task. It really has to be relevant to them, it has to be entertaining, and it has to really evoke something to make them sit through the entire video. And then, we sort of said that Generation Wild is more engaging than puppies and kittens. And what we mean by that is we looked at the engagement rates that Generation Wild has on Facebook and Instagram and compared those with other industries, nonprofits, and specifically really high-performing nonprofits in those same venues. And then our engagement rates for Generation Wild were 6% on Facebook and 9.5% on Instagram, and this goes across all the posts that we did. Now, if you look at those numbers and you start to compare them to all industries, just across the board, anybody that's on Facebook or Instagram, their engagement rate is a 0.16%. So again, we would be exceeding that by 6 to almost 10 times. And then if you start to look at the best performing nonprofits, you look at some of the animal groups out there that protect animals, and they'll be at a 2.75% Instagram engagement rate. And again, we are at a 9.5% Instagram engagement rate. So what these tell us is that, again, we have a really relevant message that people care about, and they want to learn more from the campaign, and they're engaged with the type of creative that we use to deliver the message. We also saw this year, we tested some new audiences. We went after, if you remember, in year one, we focused primarily on moms across the state of Colorado. And in year two, we started to really look at some new audiences, and we targeted dads and we targeted grandparents with some of the posts. And these were both really incredibly encouraging. We saw equally high engagement rates from those two groups as we did from the moms. So what that tells us is that, we have a big opportunity in this coming year to further target and communicate with dads and grandparents. And the campaign this past year started to really make a splash in the press. The kind of big news, or the keynote of last year, was on June 21st of last year. Governor Hickenlooper declared June 21st Generation Wild Day across the state of Colorado. And then Chris Castilian was at the Outdoor Retailer Show this past year and presented Generation Wild to all of the outdoor retailers. And in the audience for that was a reporter from Outside Magazine. And the next issue of Outside Magazine really talked about all the issues that Chris talked about. They didn't specifically mention Generation Wild, but they pretty much took Chris's speech. And so that's what went on from a media standpoint and that buzz. But now where it really gets interesting, and what we really want to talk with you next, is the Omni longitudinal study. And I'm going to pass it over to Dan Schultz to walk you through the findings of Omni.
Great, so I'll walk you through the results of the last leg of the Omni longitudinal study. So Omni is a third-party independent evaluation firm that's been working on this over the course of the last few years. Just to give you a little bit of a top line, unlike a standard pre and post study, which you typically see evaluating campaigns and behaviors. This is a little bit different. Whereas the standard pre and post, you might be talking to different groups of people just at different points in time. A longitudinal study follows the exact same people throughout this time. So we're talking to the same moms at baseline before the campaign launched, then again in the fall of 2017, and last at the end of the campaign in fall of 2018. So this is really key because it helps us see specific changes in moms over the course of that time. Another thing to point out that we were really struck by, when we started, we had 406 moms participate in a baseline study. And at the conclusion of it, we had 286. So over 70% of moms actually completed all 3 surveys, which that in itself told us something pretty incredible, because you tend to see a lot of people drop off over the course of time. But because moms were so engaged in this, they really wanted to lend their voice and tell us what they thought. So that in and of itself was pretty encouraging to see. In terms of what the evaluation focused on, the answers we were hoping to seek, we wanted to know what the level of awareness, exposure, and receptivity among moms in the sample was. Were moms seeing this out there? Was it something that they were noticing? Was it something that they were feeling really receptive towards? We wanted to understand the level of connectedness to the outdoors and how that changed over time for moms who reported being exposed to the campaign. We wanted to understand levels of agreement with positive attitude statements from baseline for moms who reported exposure. So thinking of that another way, was this changing how they thought about the outdoors? We wanted to know if moms exposed to the campaign reported that their kids are engaging in more specific outdoor activities as a function of exposure. So the things that the campaign touches on are those things that moms are actually seeing their kids participate in. We also wanted to know if the campaign exposure and receptivity, if that correlated with the change in attitudes and behaviors as a function of baseline connectedness and demographics. So this one really honed in on, are there certain groups or certain types of people that reacted in a more positive way to the campaign than others? And lastly, if moms exposed to the campaign indicated more comfort with their kids playing outside. We know that safety is a main concern and barrier for some parents. We wanted to see if the campaign had any effect on that. The sort of headline of what we're able to see is that Generation Wild has been incredibly successful in connecting moms and kids to the outdoors. And I'll touch on a few of the key highlights from this. One of the things that we were really interested in seeing was the change in awareness of the campaign. So moms who participated in, again, all 3 of those surveys, from the baseline to the end of year 1 to the end of year 2, almost 75% were familiar with specific elements of the campaign. And that's an increase over the prior year, 11.6%. And just to put that in perspective, it's really hard to drive awareness to that level that quickly. And, you know, with other campaigns operating in Colorado at a statewide level with substantially higher budgets, I mean, you know, they haven't cracked 40% over 4, 5, 6 years. So hopefully that helps put that into some context. That's a really, really great number to see. What you're going to see next is a word cloud. And what we asked moms in the evaluation was if they could describe the Generation Wild campaign in one word, what would that one word be? And what we were really struck by was all the really positive words there. You see encouraging, fun, great, beneficial, inspiring. Those are the kind of takeaways that we wanted moms to have to the campaign. We know that anything that can touch on somebody's parenting or involves their kid, that can be a really sensitive topic, and so something that we want to be respectful for. So what this tells us is that the campaign was struck the right chord with moms, so they saw it, they felt like the message was something they could get on board with, and the way it was delivered aligned with their own values. One of our strategies early on, one of the reasons why we wanted to target moms is we thought this is a message that they can get on board with and actually share it for us. So moms are almost another form of our media channel in that they're going to take this on and talk to other people about it. And we actually saw that in the evaluation. Almost half of moms indicated they had shared information about Generation Wild which is just incredible. That's an increase of 32.6% from what we saw in 2017, which was also really promising. One question we asked was the number of campaign elements that moms had seen. So have you seen the TV spot? Have you seen something on Facebook? Have you seen the fort maybe? And what we're looking at here is movement from a lower number to a higher number over time, because what tends to happen is people become more receptive to the campaign. They start to see it more places. You almost start to look for it. And so we saw that in 2018. As you can see, the shift from moms that maybe saw one or two elements to ones that saw multiple, 4, 5, 6 or more, grew dramatically from the first year to the second. So the next section, we're going to talk about what actually happened in terms of moms reporting on what their kids were actually doing. And we saw at the top line that moms familiar with the campaign reported their kids engaging in more outdoor activities, which is what we were looking for. 2/3 of moms reported having either having or using the 100 Things to Do list. And that was a pretty big uptick in what we saw in 2017. So 2/3 of moms either had the list or reported using it. And even better than that, 60% had indicated that their child had engaged in 31 or more activities from the list, which is just awesome. I mean, I think what that tells us is that the list had enough appealing things that felt doable, but also interesting enough for their kids that they were actually taking this on. Most moms that reported on this also told us that they picked up the list either on the website or at their local library. If anyone is familiar with the list, you'll notice some of the things on this chart might be a little bit familiar. Moms familiar with Generation Wild as a whole reported that their kids engaged in more of the activities that were actually promoted on the list than moms who hadn't. So again, we're here as that inspiration and that encouragement to go out and actually do these things. The most dramatic increases were in camping and fort making, which was awesome. That was one of the things that we were really excited to see with the success and all the feedback that we heard about the fort. So just over half of moms reported having participated in Generation Wild activities this summer. The things that were most common within that 50% of moms were utilizing the list or actually seeing the forts. And I think this next chart you're seeing is one of the most important key ones for us. And so at every point in time, we asked moms a battery of questions to arrive at a composite score that calculated how connected they were to the outdoors. And we wanted to monitor that level of connection over time. And what you're seeing here are two different lines. The top line are the moms that were familiar with Generation Wild, the moms who said they'd seen the campaign, had participated in it. The bottom shows that level of connectivity for moms that were unfamiliar with the campaign. And that gap is what we're really focused on here, the gap between the moms who have seen it and reported an increase in their connection to the outdoors, as opposed compared to the moms who hadn't been exposed, who actually saw a reduction in their connection to the outdoors. So the highest possible score for the scale is actually 76, so it doesn't go up to 100. So a really positive sign here. Early on, I talked about one of the things we were hoping to understand is, are there specific groups that this campaign is really resonating with and is really effective for? And we actually saw that minority moms with kids 6 and under experienced the greatest increase in their connectedness to the outdoors, which is fantastic news because we know this is one of the toughest audiences to reach and to impact. The fact that they were able to connect to the campaign, that they saw it, that they were able to participate in it, and it actually changed how they thought about the outdoors and what they were able to do with their kids is really positive news. And we actually saw that less connected moms reported a slight decrease in their own and their children's negative attitudes towards the outdoors. So again, things moving in the right direction. The one caveat to that, minority moms with kids 7 and older experienced a slight decrease in their connection. And as we were looking at the campaign, that's one of the things that we might focus on moving forward is how do we make it appealing to some of those older kids. And so we're also seeing attitude shifts because of the campaign. The next couple slides we're going to walk through measure those specific attitudinal measures that the study hit on. The first one was a question that we asked, Generation Wild changed the way that I think about the outdoors and nature. And what you're seeing here is a difference between 2017 and 2018. So 2017 is the first year, and 2018, the bar below that shows what happened this year. And what I draw your attention to is on the right side of that, the yellow and the orange color. These are the people that either agreed or strongly agreed with that statement. And you're seeing a pretty dramatic uptick in the people that affected, over 36%. The second is a question around Generation Wild and the ideas that we gave to inspire kids. So this statement was, Generation Wild gave me ideas about how to get my kids outside more often. We saw something similar, but perhaps even more dramatic for this. The uptick between 2017 and 2018 was over a 10% increase. So you're seeing around 63% of moms agreeing with that. The next one, Generation Wild encouraged the idea that time outside is beneficial to my child's development. Similar good news here, around a 9.7% increase. What's interesting about some of these attitudinal statements too is that the campaign didn't specifically have messaging around something, but that was one of the takeaways. And then Generation Wild encouraged me to get my kids outside more often. Again, a huge uptick here. This was over 20% from 2017 to 2018. So you're seeing this over 2/3 of moms agreeing or strongly agreeing with that statement. And then the last one, this was actually a new addition because some of the campaign tactics this year spoke to that idea of safety and parents being comfortable with their kids playing outside. So that's the reason why we don't have a comparison to 2017. The Generation Wild campaign has made me more comfortable allowing my child to play outside. And again, you're seeing around 35% of moms agreeing or strongly agreeing with that. So all in all, really positive news. We actually included an open-ended question as well in the evaluation where we were asking moms for suggestions about how to improve the campaign. And we were really struck by the response to that because in general it was just do more of it, make this more visible. I'd love to see it more places. If there was a way to bring it into the classroom so it became part of the kids' education, that would be amazing. If there's ways to bring more sponsorships just to get it in more parts of the state and more communities, please do so.
All right, so now we can talk a little bit about partner involvement and what and how all of you can participate, even at greater levels than you have in the past. Generation Wild is structured so that one, it's very shareable. Everything we do, we want to share with people. So the first one is real easy. Is if every one of you would yourselves encourage all of your friends to just follow the campaign on Facebook and Instagram, so we can help to grow those two communities. Joining Raising Generation Wild Facebook group is another really awesome group, and it is pretty much now run and inspired by moms and parents throughout the state of Colorado, and it is a place where they can all come together and share ideas and share thoughts around their kids and the development. And then finally, sharing social posts is another way that we can really help to spread this message throughout the state of Colorado. And then we are really focused on, some of the partners have come with some really great opportunities and events, and we are happy to talk and help design custom co-branded events and programs with any of your organizations, and we'll be happy to bring Generation Wild into those organizations. And so with that, if you have any great partner ideas or you want to get even more involved than you already are, we would suggest you contact Rosemary Dempsey at rdempsey@goco.org. And we can really talk through any of the ideas that you have and see if we can fit them into, how we can help your organization, and you can help spread the message and the love for Generation Wild. And this next year is really going to be an exciting year. There's going to be a lot of really new stuff going on, and maybe a kind of interesting things are happening later in the summer. So with that, we will open it up to any questions, and would really like to thank all of you for not only attending the webinar today, but for, there are just a ton of people out there that are doing a lot of work to help move this forward in the state of Colorado, and we appreciate it. Thank you.
Any questions from the audience? If you unmute yourselves, we'll hopefully be able to hear you.
I have a quick question. In terms of the co-branding, can you explain a little bit more of what that might look like?
Sure. Yeah, so it can look a variety of different ways, depending on the program or the event or the activity that we engage with you on. So sometimes some of our partner entities keep that pretty lo-fi, and they might use the Generation Wild logo on an event to say, this is an event for youth and families to get outdoors, and so you should join it. And we would encourage that. We would just like to see any uses of the logo before you spread it out there into the world. So you can always share examples of using the Gen Wild logo at info@goco.org. And then in other cases, we're not just doing that, but we're promoting the events together on social media in the channels that Mike mentioned. Raising Generation Wild Facebook group is a great place for any partner organizations or entities, individuals from those organizations to join in and spread the words about their own events. We actually tag all of the events into what are called units so that people can find upcoming events really easily in that platform. And then in other cases, the co-branded partnership is much more robust. And it completely depends on what that event or activity looks like. But generally, they're events or activities that are also encouraging kids to get outside. I can give you one example. We partnered up with Big Green Colorado, which provides gardens to schools around Colorado, mostly in the Denver and Fort Collins areas, but also some other school districts in the state. They provide gardens to students who are generally in Title I schools or in underserved communities, and they hope to serve 100,000 people by 2020. Well, we loved what they were doing with their gardens because they bring teachers and administrators and community members into their fold and help them activate their school gardens so that they're useful for producing food for the students, for producing food for the broader community. And we engaged with them to create a special program to get the teachers who had new gardens in their schools outside into the gardens to check off activities from the 100 things to do before your 12 list. So it was a really nice way for us to help them activate their gardens and for us to spread the message of Generation Wild. So we created a competition that we co-branded with their organization's brand and with the Generation Wild brand and spread the message to all of the third grade teachers in a particular school district, and then got them excited about the partnership and posting photos and videos of their kiddos doing those activities. So yeah, end to end, it can look really different, you know, in terms of the level of involvement. But if you've got an event or program going on that you think could be a good partnership opportunity, please do get in touch. Sometimes we just bring Generation Wild table or booth to partner events and activities. And we're happy to do that too. We have a 10 by 10 booth, or we can just bring a table and we bring lots of fun prizes and activities from the list for kids to do. So you can also email me, Rosemary, at rdempsey@goco.org with opportunities that look like that.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. This is Meredith, by the way.
Hi, nice to hear from you.
Yeah.
And Meredith, you're from our Generation Wild Coalition?
Yeah, in Garfield County.
Yeah, that's who I thought. Just making sure I had the right Meredith. Yeah, thanks for all you're doing to help spread the Generation Wild brand and word through your community. It's been amazing to work with you guys.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you so much.
Any other questions from the audience there? If you would rather follow up with me after the call, that works too. Okay, well, thank you so much for your time today. We can't wait to launch the third major phase of this campaign in the May or June months, and look forward to having your help spreading the word about it. And if there are ways that we can support your organization's outdoor activities and events, please get in touch.